With our nervous system, there's quite a bit that goes into the histology of it. Different cells, different structures, different functions. But there's two main categories when you start looking at the actual cells. You're going to have these supporting cells, known as glial cells, or sometimes neuroglia cells. Their sole purpose is meant to support and help the other cell type, which is your neuron. So the neuroglia cells, the glial cells, the supporting cells, they have many names. They're there to help make sure the neurons are functioning properly, to keep them healthy and at peak performance. The neurons are what actually carry the nervous impulses, those action potentials or those graded potentials. So that's where the actual signal is traveling through or with. That is the neuron. So the neuron is what carries the signal. The supporting cells, or the glial cells, are what help make sure the neuron stays healthy. Supporting cells, glial cells, cannot carry any electrical impulses. So let's start looking at these glial cells, these supporting cells. We'll start in the central nervous system, CNS. First one up is the astrocyte. Now, this right here is an example of an astrocyte. Because see how it's kind of reaching out, branching around. It's meant to give a supporting framework, help hold different structures in place, keep things from moving around too much. It's also helping to anchor the capillaries, the neurons, all in place. Keep them where they should be. Another function is removing signaling molecules. Remember that neurons secrete neurotransmitters. Well, that's great, but if those start to build up too much, the signal never stops. So these astrocytes can help to get rid of excessive amounts of these signaling neurons, these signaling cells from the neurons. And then the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is a specialized structure that helps to kind of modify and filter the blood that's heading to the brain. The purpose? Help to protect the brain, keep unwanted particles and, for that matter, pathogens out of the brain's blood supply. So these astrocytes have kind of a few different functions. All are very important. Next one up is also in the central nervous system. These are the oligodendrocytes. Now the oligodendrocytes are all this light blue you can kind of see. You'll notice the central body here is branching out. It's reaching out to the actual neurons. That's because these oligodendrocytes are going to reach out to the neurons and then wrap the neurons around with myelin. The idea here is they're trying to produce this myelin sheath to wrap and cover the actual axons and potentially even dendrites sometimes, but mostly axon cell bodies, and keep things protected, keep things safe, keep things insulated. So the oligodendrocytes wrapping around the different neurons. Staying again in the central nervous system, the microglia. Here's one example up here. You can see another one down here. The microglial cells. These ones, they might actually start off as white blood cells. They're still trying to figure that out. That's some ongoing research there. But the idea is they have a particular function in the central nervous system. They're going to phagocytize, or think about eating, destroying different particles, whether it be pathogens or debris inside the nervous system. That's why they're kind of thinking it comes from a white blood cell, because white blood cells are also could be phagocytotic. The whole idea here, get rid of what shouldn't be there and monitor the health of the nervous system. Specifically, monitor those actual neurons. So the microglial cells, helping to get rid of particles and monitor health. Continuing in that central nervous system, the ependymal cells. Now these, you can see, are down here. They're kind of set off to the side because the ependymal cells are going to interact with blood vessels. They're lining the cavities inside your brain. And there's 4 different main cavities we'll get to. But they're lining these cavities in association with blood vessels. Their purpose? which is making the choroid plexus, that's the blood vessels and the actual ependymal cells, but is producing cerebral spinal fluid. Now that's really important because your entire brain, as well as your spinal cord, are completely surrounded by this fluid. It gives your brain buoyancy, helps make sure it's healthy. But this cerebrospinal fluid is only produced by these ependymal cells. So it's kind of important to make sure everything's working properly. These ependymal cells, with the blood, basically takes the blood and modifies it, is going to produce cerebral spinal fluid, CSF. Shuffling over into the peripheral nervous system. Now, of course, they couldn't have the same names of things in the central and peripheral. They got to name them different. So in the peripheral nervous system, we have these things called satellite cells. Now you can see these red, kind of almost patch-like coverings. Those are satellite cells. They're covering the cell body of a neuron. So trying to help cover up and kind of protect a little bit. You're going to have Schwann cells. That's the ones down here. The Schwann cells are very similar to the oligodendrocytes. But the difference is Schwann cells are in the peripheral nervous system. They're still trying to wrap myelin around the axon, around the different parts of the neuron. Not the cell body, but the rest of it. So you're wrapping around. Difference here now between the oligodendrocytes and these Schwann cells. The Schwann cells are individual cells that wrap around a part. Then a second cell, a third cell. You might have a dozen or more cells of Schwann cells wrapping one single neuron. The oligodendrocyte, remember, was reaching out to all different neurons. It can wrap around several neurons at once. So oligodendrocytes, central nervous system, can wrap multiple neurons. Schwann cells, peripheral nervous system, can only wrap an individual neuron at a time. But they both are meant to have myelin sheathing wrapping the neuron. So what's this whole myelin sheathing I keep mentioning? The way it works, you'll notice the actual cell, so this is either going to be the oligodendrocyte or the Schwann cell. They both do this. It starts with an axon. You can see this axon's on the side here. It's still exposed. It's open. What happens is it starts to wrap around. You can see kind of wrap and wrap. The goal is to create all these layers of wrapping around and around and around. This spiral. That's creating this whole entire protective layer that's protecting and coating these different neurons. So why do we have the myelin sheathing? We already mentioned. Helps to insulate. Well, by insulating, it's protecting the nerve fiber. But that insulation also can help with increasing the speed of conduction. So your action potential can travel faster if it's insulated. Think about any electrical wire you have in your house. Would you want to touch it if it wasn't insulated or wrapped in plastic? No, you don't want to be electrocuted. That's the reason. That insulation on that wire keeps electricity inside and makes sure it gets from point A, the plug, to point B, whatever it's plugged into. The Schwann cell and the oligodendrocyte do the same thing. They keep your action potentials inside the neuron, helping to speed up transmission. And the last thing is the insulation. Insulation of the nerve fiber helps to protect it from any potential damages as well. So really, this myelin sheathing is meant to be protective, helpful, and increase speeds of conduction. So some different helping cells, all part of your nervous system. Some in the peripheral nervous system, some in the central nervous system. But they're all supporting cells, all glial cells.